bears in the area, they can move those bears to another area. I know they have the capability of doing that.
Yes, they do. You had asked earlier about Kelly McConnell, the young 13-year-old, and how his life went after that. Well, he was, in fact, adopted by a family who took care of him after his mom's death, and he grew up and went on to college in Stevens Point up in Wisconsin. And his wife has a Facebook now, a personal page, and I understand they're living in Oklahoma and doing very well. And, of course, now he was 13 at that time. That was in 1998. So if you do the math, here we are 17 years later already. So he's 30 years old now,
Yeah. He must relive that probably every day.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure it's not something that would ever go away for anybody who was there, anybody who witnessed it, anybody who was in any way involved in it. I'm sure it's not something that will ever go away.
Now, when you first started talking, did you mention that the mother didn't she mention that she had a daughter also?
Yes. Yes. The daughter was not present to see the attack. She was down at one of the pools with some kids that she had met. Of course, she found out soon enough, and of course, it was traumatic for, she saw her mother dead, and there was this lodge across the street, a Liard Lodge. Well, I say across the street, it's about a mile across from the Liard Hot Springs. And in fact, while they were waiting for the helicopter to arrive, which care flighted Kelly to the British Columbian Children's Hospital in Vancouver, while they were waiting for the helicopter to come from Fort Nelson, which it took it a little while to get there, they had taken Patty, and she was deceased by this time. And later on a table inside this lodge, which we know is both a camping area, and it has rooms and a restaurant and this type of thing. And so the little girl did become aware at that time. She was only 7 years old, but she became aware at that time of what had taken place. And I'm certain it must have traumatized her as well at that time. She, of course, is an adult now. She's 25 years old now, and I do not know her whereabouts or what's going on in her life. But I know it must have severely traumatized her, at 7 years old.
Oh, of course it would. That'd just be a horrendous thing. But then, and you said the girl was how old? She was 7 at the time?
Yes, 7 years old at the time. Patty was only 37, the young woman who was killed.
And her husband was not with her?
She did not have a husband. Patty had been divorced for a substantial amount of time, and was a single mom to all intent and purposes, and was going to, start a new life in Anchorage, where she had spent some of her childhood time. She was going to settle in Anchorage, Alaska, and get a job and housing and what have you. And this turn of events, of course, occurred. Are there any accounts of bear attacks ever happening in Illinois that you've ever heard of, Cherry?
No. I've looked it up, and I believe it said that in something around the 1850s was about the last time that bears had been seen in Illinois. And then it wasn't probably a week or two later that someone came along and disputed that and said that one had just been sighted in northern Illinois, but I believe it had come across the border from another state. But so virtually the bears, black bears, are, they've been gone here for many, many years.
I understand there are still some in Wisconsin.
Yeah, I'm sure there is.
And every now and then you'll hear news about one in New Jersey or, various parts of the country. They even occur occasionally in Florida and in northeast Texas. They swim the Red River down. Usually it's an isolated bear. It's going to be one black bear by itself. But there was an account the same year that Patty McConnell was killed. A bear swam down the Red River from Oklahoma and came into northeast Texas. And, of course, it made front page because just a week or two earlier, Patty McConnell had been killed up in British Columbia. So it was a strange coincidence, to say the least. You know, it was a very, very strange thing. I don't think any harm came to the bear. I don't think they ever found it. It was sighted by a lot of people. It got into a man's garage and tore into his garbage and what have you. And, you know, it likely went right back up, swam right back up the Red River into Oklahoma, probably, where it came from.
Now, I know that the Panthers have been gone from Illinois for years and years and years, too. And it was just, I think it was maybe last year that one was killed in Illinois, and that probably was northern Illinois, too. And but you know, they had not been seen here for years and years, and it just, to me, it seemed awfully cruel just to kill it. But yet, I guess it had been bothering, you know, I believe farm animals, or you know, it was roaming around, you know, a populated area, and so it was just killed. And from the pictures that I saw of it on Facebook, you know, it looked like it was in good health and everything. And to me, that was sad. I never could understand why, you know, it wasn't tranquilized and moved to another area. But, you know, sometimes I guess, you know, that stuff just happens.
Yeah. And, you know, in certain parts of the country, there's problems from time to time with mountain lions, and occasionally you'll hear stories of that type of attack as well.
Yeah. Now, I saw...
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Go ahead. I said I saw a mountain lion probably would have been about 40 years ago over in Paris, Illinois, driving through the country at night, and I looked up over at a great big hillside, and in the light of the as I came up the road, and from the lights of the car, I spotted it right up on the ridge, and you know, I saw it long enough to know exactly what it was, but now, as far as I know, those have been gone, you know, from this area too. Now, I believe there's been some reports of them in southern Illinois. But you know, to me, it's just terrible that, of course, you know, we've encroached on their area, you know, and then moved all of these animals out, you know, over a period of several hundred years. And to me, it's just sad that, you know, all of that wildlife for us is, you know, it's gone.
Well, as mankind has settled and expanded into what was once wilderness areas and settled and built towns and cities and what have you, of course, we encroach upon the natural habitats of all of these different animals, and so it obviously changes the balance of nature. The original balance that they were used to changes and shifts, so they migrate or move, I guess, to other areas where food's more readily available. In some cases, as you say, there just may not be any left, or very, very few in Illinois or in other areas because of human population. You know, as we move in, they move out, or they're killed, what have you. So it's a shift in the balance of whatever the dominant species in a given area is.
Yeah, because that's always the first thing that, you know, anytime anything like that is reported, people have seen it, and, you know, someone's out hunting for it, the first thing people say is, oh, kill it, you know, let's kill it. You know, and to me, that's just, I don't know, to me it's not right. It's just not right at all. But that's people's fear. It's their fear.
Of course it is. And yet, by the same token, there's such a long tradition in this country of hunting. You know, not just deer hunting, but, you know, duck hunting, all sorts of different hunting, and, of course, bear hunting. You know, there's just different types of hunting that take place, and that's a popular sport, and a lot of people seem to enjoy going out and hunting animals. So apparently that's something that's, whether we like it or not, that's a harsh reality. Certain animals have even gone extinct. Now look at the buffalo. Buffalo are nearly extinct, primarily slaughtered by gunfire. I understand during the late 1800s there were even people that would shoot at them from trains. You know, they would be passing
Oh
by
yeah.
this huge herd of buffaloes, and they'd just shoot at
Oh
them
yeah.
from a train. You know,
Yeah.
and so
Yeah, I've
it's
seen
where
pictures where, you know, there was just buffalo hides were just piled 10 foot deep.
yeah.
You know, they were just killed for, you know, their hides, and you know, the rest of the animal was just left to rot. Of course, that was, you know, probably back when there were still Indians and stuff, but you know, they depended on the buffalo for food and everything else, just about.
As I understand it, historically, that's part of how the Plains Indians were, in part, overcome, defeated, whatever terminology you want to use, by the white settlers, by American white settlers coming in because of the gradual extermination of the buffalo. And since their culture was built on that, you know, the food, the meat, the fur, so many of the things that were such an important part of the Plains Indians' culture surrounded or was based upon the buffalo. And so as the buffaloes began to disappear, it impacted them.
And it kind of makes you wonder if a lot of that, you know, what we were talking about, that, you know, people shot them by probably the hundreds, if not hundreds of thousands from trains. You kind of wonder if the government was not involved in that as a, you know, a reason to push them into reservations.
Yeah, because even if there's not direct approval of something, there can be tacit approval. And by that I mean the government can be aware that something's going on and kind of turn their head the other way because they realize the repercussions or the outcome of a certain set of events will go in a certain direction, and maybe that's the direction they want, so they just allow it to happen. In other words, certain things are just allowed to happen sometimes. I think there's veering off into a completely different subject, Pearl Harbor, many believe, was allowed to occur, that there was intelligence prior to the attack on Pearl Harbor, that our government, or at least parts of it, knew that the Japanese were going to strike. So I believe definitely, even on the level of the buffaloes being slaughtered, that sometimes things are just allowed to happen because they serve an ulterior purpose.
Oh, yeah, and I'm sure it's still happening today in different areas with our government, I'm sure.
Oh, I think so, too.